Hello, Filiqui here. It's been a while since I uploaded a video. Unfortunately, I turned my old PC into a bit of a potato, and I had to go ahead and build a completely new one. It took me some time, but I finally got around to completely assembling everything in my new build. It's the first time I've ever used an AMD processor, and so far I'm pretty happy with it. I've been able to OC the Ryzen 2600 to a 4.0 gigahertz overclock. It's running stably at 3 point, I think 7. It's also pretty well cooled. I have a pretty beefy water AIO, so not much of an issue there. And it's also performing exceptionally well. The rest of the system is your standard stuff. Some Corsair RGB Pros running at 300 megahertz with the XMPS profile enabled in the BIOS of the Aorus Gaming 5 Wi-Fi, whose BIOS, by the way, is fairly easy to work with. I also have a 1080 MSI Seahawk that I brought over from the old build, and some solid state drives with a new NV ME.2, and two mechanical drives for storage. Anyway, I decided to go ahead and give the Division 2 a shot in this new build and see how well it would run the game. So this isn't a performance test, or I'm not going to be benchmarking anything. I'm pretty much going to be giving an initial impressions of the Division 2. I never played the Division 1, and I even passed on it when I saw it on sale for about $12 for a complete edition on Origin not too long ago. I'm not sure why. I guess I just wasn't particularly interested in playing it. However, AMD was running a promotion. They gave you a free copy of the Division 2 with the purchase of, I think, any Ryzen over in the 2000 series, but I'm not entirely sure. It probably had to be higher than a 2600, but I'm not sure about that. In any case, I saw no reason not to give this game a shot. At this point, I think I have played the game for, I think I've cleared most of the early stages. So this is, like always, not an in-depth review, but just a general description or assessment of my experience up to this point. So, with the sounds and visuals of the game, they're great. I mean, Ubisoft is criticized for a lot of things, but their sounds and visuals department are always spot on. There are plenty of different looking and sounding guns to keep firearms interesting and feeling different as you switch through them. Armor doesn't look much different from piece to piece, but I think that's more of a consequence of what the armor pieces are. I mean, there's really not much of a variety that can be had in terms of knee pads. I mean, I might be wrong. Maybe I haven't had the right, or haven't found the really rare kind of knee pad that's going to look really different from the other knee pads, but I doubt that. The NPCs are effectively mundane, as in, I can literally not tell the difference between nearly all of them. They spurt out generic compliments and come off a little static and lifeless. This can be maybe what they were going for in terms of how they blend into the environment, but I also doubt that. They just really come off as kind of bland. Definitely not a highlight for me. The enemies or hyenas that I've encountered so much are pretty much all the same. I mean, some of them have more armor, and some of them say slightly more uh, intimidating things. But other than that, there's really not much there. The closest thing I can compare them to are the enemies from Borderlands without the color and vibrant varieties that they had. At least the humanoid enemies, and not the monsters or crazy things that were roaming around. Nevertheless, the game does a great job of immersing the player when simply walking through the devastated streets of DC with its sounds and visuals. Oh, one of the things that I did find worth noting, but it's simply not that big of a concern in my mind, is the character creator. It's pretty limited, and I know some people really love their character creator. They want to make their character as detailed and as unique as possible through the options. For me, it's kind of a wash. It has enough options to make the other agents that you find varied enough that you don't see the same face over and over again. But again, not that detailed, and not really something that I imagine the developers focused on. Gameplay wise, the game does an effective job at keeping things interesting. The variety in weapons and special abilities enable an entertaining and occasionally intense encounter from objective to objective. I haven't participated in PvP yet, but I have enjoyed helping out and having others help me out when trying to clear an area full of hyenas. I do enjoy how the game manages to blend multiplayer aspects, even when I'm primarily trying to play the game as a single player experience. Having other agents come help, even if they're human controlled agents, works well. I found it enhances my single player experience more than it takes away from it. When the area is cleared or I don't require help anymore, I simply drop from the team and move right along. So far, the game has been offering an engaging and immersive experience even as I attempt to play it solo. However, the game does have one pretty big negative for me. The story is really rather uninteresting and uncaptivating. I go mission to mission, and so far, just nothing really there to keep me interested in the backdrop of what's going on. Maybe there will. Maybe this will get better as I play the game more and get more invested in what's going on. But as of now, it hasn't done a if it hasn't done an effective job of selling the significance of the story to me. Sure, the game is entertaining, but without a way to sell me on the significance of its story, I imagine my interest in continuing with the game will break down to how much I like the gameplay, which at the moment is well enough, but my guess is that won't last particularly long. I'm usually looking for a compelling story and great gameplay. Usually a compelling story is enough to keep me going through a game even if the gameplay is simply adequate. Ultimately, there's a lot of game left for me to play. The questions on my mind, however, are how much more game will I be interested in playing, and can it keep me away from the plethora of other games available at the moment? I intend to do a follow up video after I get deeper into the game and explore more of its mechanics, but at the moment, I believe the best way to conclude this initial impressions video is that The Division 2 has a solid base to build upon as people progress through the game, but as it is essentially in the category of live service type of game, I do hope that what I have experienced so far becomes a little bit more varied than simply find some caches, clear this area, rescue this person, and of course the main missions, which again should be driven by a compelling story, but so far the story aspect of the game is lacking for me. Yeah, I get it. We're in this apocalyptic world, but okay, so what? There's plenty of other apocalyptic world games that are driven by better characters and better stories. Also, I've seen there is a crafting system. I have neither felt the need nor desire or even necessity to utilize it, which I do hope changes as I progress. I hope I feel necessary to use it because I always hate it when developers add a mechanic into a game or a system into a game that is completely irrelevant to the game itself. It's like you can use it if it's there, it'll make your experience slightly better or you'll get this slightly better weapon, but it's not really necessary. It that doesn't really work for me. It's like why it's wasted effort ultimately. Well, that wraps it up for this initial impressions. As I get deeper into the game, I'll post another video making note of how the game improves as you progress, or if it really just is more of the same. But as of now, that wraps it up, and till next time.